Incorporating beads with polymer clay is nothing new, but what about incorporating your beads directly into a polymer clay piece, like dangling from the center? This is kind of a fun technique and a great way to use some smaller beads you may have that still want to be focal points. Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another polymer clay jewelry video at keepsakecrafts.net. I've had several of these Czech pressed glass beads for some time, and I really like them. They're very interesting and different, but they're a little small to be focals. So I've seen some of these pendants floating around the internet with beads in the centers, and I wanted to try it out for myself. The main thing you will need is some sort of a cutter that is a little bit bigger than your beads. So for the heart, I have this one, which is pretty much just right, or for the circles, you just need a little bit of space around it. Then you need some clay so that you can cut out a shape and cut out the hole in the center for your bead, sort of like that. These ones are fun because they're different on both sides, so you could play with them and spin them, and I'll show you more about that in a bit. I'm opting to use solid colored clay here today, but you could use clay with a pattern in it, with makume gane or stripes or any kind of surface treatment you want. I sort of want my beads that are in the middle to shine, so I'm going to keep it simple and just add some texture. I have lots of different sheets here for texture. I'll have links to as many of them as I can find links to, even some homemade texture plates like of steampunk gears. For this one, I'm going to use this, which is Barbara Lewis's Klimt's carpet. I just love all the different textures in here. I really like using Armor All as a release. You only need a tiny bit. Put it on, not on the stamp, but actually on the clay. And then rub it really thin. In fact, you could actually wipe it right off and you would still have a thin layer on there. Funny story, when my boys were younger, we bought them a trampoline for our backyard. And one day, they decided to armor all the trampoline. That was interesting. And even though they went in and wiped it off, it stayed slippery for quite a while. They had a fun time on that trampoline. So I'm just going to choose a section of my stamp and press on it here with an acrylic block. You want a fairly deep impression, which is why you might be able to tell I'm standing up here, rocking it slightly, because the next step is going to soften your texture a little bit. I have my two cutters chosen here. I'm actually going to first choose a place for my bead. Now this bead is drilled diagonally. I need to remember that. So take a little time, plan out where you want it to go. I've got here a bit of plastic. This is what's going to soften your texture a little bit. So I hope you are finding this video inspirational and helpful, and if you have, I hope that you will consider becoming a patron. My patrons get not only the satisfaction of knowing that they're keeping these tutorials coming for everybody, but they also get the opportunity to get bonus tutorials every month. And there's sneak peeks, behind the scenes, free templates. I try to give my patrons as much as I can. Again, place my bead. Now my stringing cord is going to be through the bead. So I need to remember that however I position this, do I want it? Oh, that's kind of fun. Oh, maybe I'll have it hanging at a diagonal. Or crooked. No, crooked would make me crazy. I think at a diagonal. It doesn't have to be centered either. I'm just going to press that in lightly just to kind of make a couple marks so I know. Bring my plastic back and cut that out. The next thing you want to do is get some pretty thick stringing wire. This is, I think, 0.24 or nearly 1/4 of a millimeter thick, which is very thick stringing wire. String your bead onto the wire. You only need, maybe a 5 or 6 inch piece. Take your pendant shape. If you need to do some smoothing on the edges, you can. Get it shaped just the way you want. Lay your bead in there. And now you can decide how your pendant hangs. And here's a cool trick to keep things level. If you want them to hang a particular way, get yourself an index card and put it line side up. I don't have to eyeball it. I can actually line up those corners so they're going across the same line. Then I can take my wire and have it exit the pendant at the same point on both sides and just press that into the clay. So this next line up. So you have a little bit of a graceful curve that will keep your pendant from flipping upside down, but it will be level the way you want it, whichever direction you want your piece to hang. Press that wire in just lightly. You don't want to wreck the texture on the other side. As long as the wire is at least halfway into the clay, you're good. And then you just go ahead and bake that. You can pull this out first and go ahead and bake that. Here's one I did earlier, and I decided I wanted my pendant hanging this way. And that wire snaps right in that spot. I love that I can flip that around. I don't know why, that just makes me so happy. Oh, by the way, the clay here is rolled out to about a number 3 setting. 2 layers of the thickest setting of the pasta machine I found were just a little too thick. So here's your backing, and if you want, you can texture that. I probably would if this were more than just a demo, but I'm just demonstrating here. So you cut out a matching piece for the backing. Then what you have to do is flip it over, get your piece on there. I might just have to mark it a little bit. There. That way I have my hole in the back in the same spot. The next thing you'll want to do is get some liquid clay. Go ahead and put that, don't get it in the channel or even too close to the channel with the stringing wire, but just a thin coat of liquid clay so that the baked clay will bond to the unbaked clay. Put your bead back on the stringing wire if you need to, and put it in place on that piece, that baked piece that you made, putting the wire into the stringing channel. Should just pop right in, and then lay that on top, sandwiching the wire in between. Now is the time to take a little time and make these edges as nice as you can. We can go back and fix them later. It really is easier to get it as nice as you can now, nice and smooth and even. Once you've done that, you can pull out the wire. You can bake it with the wire in or not. It doesn't matter. I would make sure and give it a tug, so make sure that it moves freely in there. And even if there's a little TLS on it, when it's all baked, you'll be able to pull it out. Here's one I did earlier. I did it a little bit differently because the heart is strung up and down. But other than that, it's pretty much the same way. You can see I went ahead and strung on some bead stringing wire. Again, because it's strung up and down, I have a double length going through the hole. And that's the great thing about using that really thick stringing wire is that you have plenty of room for even a couple strands of finer wire. My cutter is a little bit bigger than my heart, so I may add a couple of beads down here just to kind of center it in the hole. And the edges are pretty nice. They could use a little bit of sanding. You can also take a little tiny bit of your clay and sort of backfill. Press that in there. Don't take your wire out for this. Leave that thicker bead stringing wire in there for this. I thought I could do it without the wire and miss my holes, and I can't tell you how long I've spent looking for my holes again in my other piece. So you can do that, and then of course it would need another bake, but that makes those edges smooth. If you use a metallic like I did on a couple of these, it's going to be tough to hide the edges completely, the seams, because the mica flakes in the metallic clay tend to look different at different angles. Here are a few of my pendants all done. You know, it's funny when you begin a project like this, you think you know what you're going to like, but you just keep experimenting and trying things, and Sometimes the unexpected things are your favorites. This one I wasn't really caring for until I put the patina and finish on. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. I also swapped out the black bead for the white. I'm not sure. I think the white one is really fun, the way the beads spin. This is a fun necklace to wear and fidget with and play with. Let me show you how I did the coloring on this one. I'll do this one final side. This one was done with patinas, vintage patinas in cobalt and gold. And I'll show you what I mean. I used one color for the background. And that one gets brushed on first. So you just add a few drops. And brush it all over. Of course, you can finish these any way you want. This is just what I did, and I was really pleased with the results. You can just do a simple antiquing with acrylic paint. When you do this, I'm using a brush to make sure I get down into all the crevices. Next, I'm using a dry paper towel. I don't want any moisture on this. Wipe it off. Find a clean spot and wipe again. Next, I'm going to use another color. I'm going to use one that's fairly close to the green because I did choose this green color to go with the green bead. So I'm going to stick with green here. Dab it on a surface and then take your finger and tap it. And keep tapping until you have just a very small amount. Basically, you just want to have enough to dry brush, so to speak. Because this color is close to the clay, I'm not going to get a big, huge difference here. But you can kind of see it's making a difference. I think I'll hit these edges too, which got blue from the other side. This one, unfortunately, is not going to spin in here. I didn't have a cutter the right size, so I used a craft knife to cut that out, and I cut it a little close. I actually had to shave it down a bit after baking to make it fit. But that's okay. I think it's kind of cool. It's like a little window in there. Make sure you don't wait too long to clean your brushes because this stuff does dry quickly. So there's that. And just to show you this one, I used white vintage patina. I think the color is called Marble. Painted it on, wiped it out. So there's the white in the recesses. And then I went over the top with the rose gold, which I just love. And on the back, I did the opposite. I painted on rose gold, wiped it off, and left rose gold in the recesses, and then dry brushed over with my finger with the marble, the white. This one I just put, I think, some moss, and I think there was another green color, jade, in the greens, and tried to wipe up most of it. I didn't put anything over the top. This one got antique bronze and antique copper in the recesses, and then I went over the top with a combination, just kind of here and there, rose gold, gold, and the antique copper. Just some ideas for you. I hope that this sparks an idea for your own creativity. If you're interested in the supplies I'm using, you should click on the little eye in the upper right of the video or in the description box to go to my blog post where I always have a complete supply list with links to products. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and take a peek at my Patreon page for how you can get great rewards and bonus tutorials. Happy creating. Bye-bye.